The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into episode 11 of Crossed Flags. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. We appreciate you joining us. A little bit later, we're going to talk a little bit of NASCAR because there's a couple of things. One's related to the 2025 schedule. Actually, a couple of things related to the 2025 schedule. And embedded in that is something that NASCAR has decided to do. And I'm not really sure why. Drum up interest? Maybe? I don't know. He's not a fan.
No.
We'll see how it goes.
No.
But first things first, in case you didn't realize, we've got ourselves a little thing going on up in Indianapolis, not this weekend, but Memorial Day weekend, called the Indy 500. And that's always a big thing. We know we've got the double attempt going on from Kyle Larson, who's going to attempt to run the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte that same day. Found out a couple of interesting things on this. He's not the only one doing the double this year.
No.
But it's a different kind of double. Doug Rice, who is the lead commentator for the Performance Racing Network, PRN, he's going to be doing a double this year too. He's going to help out on the radio call for the IRN radio network on the Indy 500 and then go to Charlotte and help out on the Coca-Cola 600. That's a lot of talking.
If you really want to get technical with it, you not only have one, not two, there are 4 people doing the double this year.
Yeah.
In a different form.
And then there was this one, and you want to talk about a weird version of a hybrid sort of a thing. Jimmy Johnson, not racing an IndyCar this year, but he is going to be in Indianapolis because he has been tabbed by NBC to do a handful of races during the Cup Series portion of their season. But he is going to get his feet wet when it comes to the broadcasting side by leading off by being a commentator for the Indy 500. And then he's flying to Charlotte, and he's going to race in the Coca-Cola 600.
That's 3.
Fourth?
Your fourth one, you actually have a spotter that is doing the double. Brent Wentz, he is the spotter for the 15 Rick Ware car, and he is going to be spotting for Takuma Sato in the 75 Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan car. So you got 4 people doing the double all at the same time.
One would think they could get like a discount on flights.
Somebody's got an awfully fast private jet.
They better, because you're going to have to haul it. Now, Kyle Larson's probably the biggest one that everyone's kind of, I'm not going to say concerned about, but it's certainly the one that everybody's watching because, again, you got to go back 23 years now to the only driver who's run all 1,100 miles of both of these races, and that was Tony Stewart. And, again, that was 2001. So a lot of people are going to be watching that. And Kyle has come out and said, if we get weather delayed or the race runs long, I'm getting out of the car because I'm going to the Coca-Cola 600 because that is where his bread is buttered. Yes, he isn't going to enjoy his time in the Indy 500. You know he would like to finish the race, but his main paycheck comes from racing in NASCAR. So he has already said the Coca-Cola 600 is his priority.
Right.
And I don't blame him.
No, I don't blame him at all either.
Yeah. After we get past Indianapolis is where the situation comes in where we have been kind of wondering. And we found out about plans way back in, mid-2003, I guess it was, for IndyCar to possibly bring in a hybrid system. And this is nothing new. Formula One's currently using a hybrid system. And they have what they call a DRS, which is a drag reduction system, which really all that is a little button on the steering wheel that the drivers can push if they're within a second of the person in front of them, and it opens up a flap in the rear wing, and it allows air to go through quicker, and they can pick up, 10, 15 miles an hour, depending?
Depending on where you're at, yeah.
Yeah. So, IndyCar's been kind of playing with this. And IndyCar has set themselves up this benchmark of Formula One horsepower. And F1 puts out, give or take, 1,000 horsepower out of a twin-turbo V6 setup with the hybrid system that they have. Well, IndyCar said, you know what? If they can do it, we can do it too. So they worked with Chevrolet and Honda, their two engine providers, and they started testing this hybrid system middle of last year, did a lot of testing during the off season. Still got a little bit more testing to do with it. In fact, you found out that one of those tests is coming up here right after, not too long after the Indy 500.
Yeah, it's going to be June the 9th. They're going to do a hybrid system test with Michael Shank Racing, with Tom Blomqvist, that's a Honda team, June the 9th at Michigan.
For those of you that don't remember what Michigan looks like, Michigan is a 2-mile-long, rather flat, D-shaped oval. Those cars are going to book. If we don't see 240 out of this test, I'm going to really question some things about this hybrid system. Yeah, because this system, they're saying, should add 100 to 150 horsepower onto these cars. Now, these cars, when they qualify this coming weekend at Indianapolis, are going to be topping 230, approaching 235 miles an hour.
Very close.
Without the use of the hybrid, remember, because it's going to be happening after the Indy 500.
Yeah, because right now the IndyCar practice just got going from weather from yesterday getting called off and then running really late today. They're in race trim right now. Mm-hmm. Nobody's really hitting qualifying trim right now.
Yeah, they're starting to work their way up towards the 230-mile mark, but you're seeing 226, 227. Again, you get into qualifying trim, you're going to be hitting 232, 233, maybe 234. And then on top of that, you're going to put them out on a track that's got a little bit more banking than Indianapolis. Not a lot, but a little bit.
I think Michigan is 16 or 18-ish.
Okay. And I think Indianapolis's biggest one is what, 9?
8 or 9.
8 or 9 degrees, something like that in the curves. And again, it's a strict oval, not the 90-degree curves that you got in Indianapolis, so you don't have to turn the wheel as far.
Right.
And then you turn around and you engage an extra 100, 150 horsepower. And in test mode, as we know, because we talked about those penalties a couple of weeks ago, you've got push to pass available to you automatically. And push to pass adds another give or take 50 horsepower. And they've already said those two systems are going to work in tandem. They're not removing one to put the other in. They're going to give the drivers all of that extra horsepower. So you're talking at least 150, maybe as much as 200 or a little bit more horsepower that they're going to be able to basically go at the click of a button on the steering wheel. Yeah, these guys should be hitting 240 and maybe scaring themselves.
I will say this. I will go as far as to say this. The old closed course record that Gilles de Ferran set at Auto Club of 241, if it's not flirted with or eclipsed, I'm going to have some serious question marks.
Yeah. Then at that point in time, we need to really wonder whether or not this hybrid system is all that it's going to be cracked up to be, because they're not changing anything about the current engine. They're keeping it the twin-turbo V6 that IndyCar's been using since, 2012?
Something like that, yeah.
At least since Chevrolet came back in. And so they're not changing that. They're not changing the horsepower output. They're not changing a thing. They're just adding something that gives them that much more horsepower. All right, then. Let's see where you go. I'm very intrigued by this. And then they're supposed to debut it on track in race form at Mid-Ohio in late June.
That's going to be a tough one to debut it at.
Let's find out.
That racetrack is tight.
Yeah, let's find out whether or not this system is ready for prime time. We're going to find that out real fast, whether this system is ready for prime time. Now, it shouldn't be all that difficult. GM, Chevrolet, they use hybrids.
Yep.
They're not as well known for them. Honda's been going hybrid for quite a while on some of their models. So
they have. Toyota's going that way as well.
now it's just a matter of getting into that situation and making sure that you can do it in race trim, and boom, you're good to go.
Yep.
Should be fun to watch. Yeah. The other thing that'll be fun to watch is what's NASCAR's reaction going to be to this? Because F1's done it now. IndyCar's doing it. When does NASCAR start seriously talking about going hybrid?
Well, like you just said, you've got F1's got it. IndyCar's debuting it. IMSA, which is under the NASCAR banner.
True.
They've got it debuted, and they're debuted. they've been running it in their DP, the hypercar, the DP Daytona prototypes. They started it last year because at the Rolex 24 when we were on pit road and I heard it and I went, oh dear God, what is it? What was that? They just zzz, and then they're gone.
And it took off.
And it's crazy, but I don't know.
And again, we've talked about it on this and our 2-hour weekend show. In order to attract another manufacturer or two, you're probably looking at a different situation here because while all three of the current makes have a V8 that they can put in those race cars, the exception being Toyota, their V8 is only used right now in pickup trucks.
I own one.
There you go. They don't put them in a road-going car over at Toyota, but they have the V8, so they use it for the Supra and the Xfinity series and the Camry and the Cup series, right? Well, go to Honda. Honda's at the point where they're starting to phase out V6s in all of their cars and keeping them only for their pickup truck, the Ridgeline, and their SUVs like the Passport and the Pilot. So they have no V8. A lot of other people have been talking about the fact that Hyundai might come in. Now, I don't know what the heck they're going to run in the Craftsman Truck Series, but that's not the point. They're a 4-cylinder heavy organization with a V6 option, no V8. Do you go in as a Honda or a Hyundai or both, I don't care, and say, all right, we'll go into NASCAR and we'll develop a V8, but it's only going to be for NASCAR? That's a pretty significant outlay of money for both of these organizations, and neither one of them is small, don't get me wrong, but they're not Toyota, they're not General Motors, they're not Ford. I don't know. I don't know whether they would do it or not.
The most logical one that would be able to do it, in my opinion, and I've said it till I'm blue in the face, and I'll go die on this hill, is Nissan.
Yeah.
That's the most logical one.
Yeah, because they've got the V8. Their situation is very much like Toyota. Yes, they've got a V8 already ready to go. It's in the Titan pickup truck. Mm-hmm. They don't put it in any of the cars, but it's not going to be that difficult to be able to make it work in a Maxima / Altima / Sentra, whatever it is that you would use in the Cup / Xfinity series.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Nissan makes the most sense. But again, everyone seems to be pointing their fingers at Honda and Hyundai as the most logical two marks to come into NASCAR if they're going to expand in the near future.
Yeah, because either one of those two, I would say Honda, from the simple fact of Honda's motorsports presence in IndyCar, F1, and IMSA, Touring Challenge Series, stuff like that, of their presence there.
Yeah. Their performance development, HPD, which now has a different name, but I'll still call it HPD, Honda Performance Development, they're pretty well established. It wouldn't take all that much for them to be able to work it up. Hyundai, still pretty new to the whole racing world. So not as established. Might be a little bit more of a situation where they'd have to work on building up that infrastructure.
Yep.
Time will tell.
Yep.
2025, we've been talking about the new TV deal. We know that the Craftsman Truck Series is going to remain with Fox Sports 1. We know that the Xfinity Series coverage is going lock, stock, and barrel, like the Craftsman Truck Series, all on Fox Sports 1, save for maybe a Fox race.
Maybe.
Occasionally they do that.
Maybe.
Xfinity Series, all of it going to the going to CW Network. That's right, CW Network. They went out there, put in a bid, grabbed the entire series coverage. So they got it all. All the races, any practices, all the qualifying. It's all going to be on CW Sports as they start to establish themselves now as a player in the network broadcast situation. Then we came across a deal that instead of having it all on one network, the Cup Series is split amongst 4. So the first 14 events, and I use that term very, very carefully because we're also talking about the first 14 races of the year are 12 points races and 2 exhibition events. Okay? Money grabs, if you will. You got the Busch Light Clash to begin the year. That's that all-star cash grab. Then you got the lead up to and including the Daytona 500 and the first 14 races, which will, as we found out now, conclude with the All-Star race, which is a cash grab again. Okay? No points involved in that. Now, remember what I just said. It will conclude Fox Sports' 14 events total with the All-Star race.
There's an awfully large event that runs after the All-Star race if you think about it.
Yep.
Awfully large.
That means that what we're going to be working towards, not this weekend for NASCAR, where there's going to be All-Star weekend, but Memorial Day weekend, that Coca-Cola 600, that race will kick off the Amazon Prime coverage when they pick up the 5-race package next year. So you go from Fox to Amazon Prime, 14-5. The last 14 races of the year are on NBC or NBC Sports.
You've got TNT's got 5 as well.
Yep. In the middle is TNT with a 5-race deal. You're exactly correct. They've told us now that the kickoff for TNT's 5 races will be at Atlanta Motor Speedway on a Saturday night in late June. That's a good call. Atlanta in June, late June, almost July. That's toasty. So, yes.
A little warm.
Pulling the night race at Atlanta next June, good call on NASCAR's part. But it also means that the next thing that we're going to be talking about, and we'll get back to it in a moment, we'll start on a super speedway package. That ought to be interesting. Here's the thing. We don't know.
Oh, boy.
And I'm going to use something, and our producer Molly knows a little bit about this as well because of her situation over there with WJOX Jocks and her daily show, 3-Man Front. The National Football League tonight is going to reveal their entire 2024 schedule, correct? All right. But we've been hearing leaks. We keep hearing little things here, like we've made no bones about this, and for the last couple of years, they've been kind of a laughingstock. But both Matt and I happen to be New England Patriots fans. And when we found out that one of their road games this year was going to be Jacksonville, we thought, hey, maybe we can make a trip down to Jacksonville. It's not all that far. Check it out.
I had it lined up. A personal close friend of mine lives in Jacksonville. And I said, hey, buddy, I just heard the Patriots has got Jacksonville next year. At home.
It's a home game for Jacksonville.
A home game.
Yeah.
Hook me. Yeah, come on. Tickets are on me because I can get some hardly little or nothing. Stay in my place. Great. Steve, we got us a trip to Jacksonville. Not so fast.
Not so fast, my friend. One of the things that leaked out is the fact that Patriots versus Jaguars, with the Jaguars considered to be the home team, is going to be in London. Okay.
I would rather take my Toyota Tundra to a stadium than have to get on an A350 and jump the pond and go to London to go to Wembley Stadium to watch a ball game.
Now, would I like to make that trip at some point in time? Sure. To watch a football game?
Nope.
My wife would have an absolute conniption fit that, number one, I didn't take her, and number two, I just did it to go to a football game.
Steve.
It's not happening. So that's out. But to relate it back to what we're talking about here, again, little things start trickling out about the National Football League's 2024 regular season schedule, right? Well, the same thing's coming in NASCAR. We know when the Daytona 500 is going to be. It's going to be the week after the Super Bowl. Okay? Yep. That we know. So that means the Busch Light Clash is the week before the Super Bowl. We got that. It always sandwiches. Then you go through the process of starting to look at this. You look at the calendar next year and you go from Daytona 500 to Memorial Day weekend where the Coca-Cola 600 sits, and there's a one-off weekend in there. Which one is it? We don't know. Maybe they go back to the tradition of having either Easter or Mother's Day off. We're going to race on one of them. I don't know which. But the other one seems the most likely one to be off, either Easter or Mother's Day.
Honestly, it needs to be both.
It needs to be, but when you look at the number of weekends, it's not going to be. Yep. So one of those is the likely candidate that, hey, this is going to be your off weekend. Then you go to Charlotte. We don't know what's going to follow. We go to Atlanta, and I think that's the last weekend of the month of June.
June 28th.
And if NASCAR's serious about this street course race thing, then that means probably the next weekend we're going to Chicago or whatever other city they decide to go to put the street race on around July 4th.
As much as NBC is all over this Chicago street race, I'm finding it hard pressed to believe that street race would stay in its current spot in 25 if they go back. You got to say if they go back, because the way everything is in Chicago, you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
Yeah, and NASCAR, let's face it, NASCAR is losing their shirt on the Chicago race. We've heard reports that last year's first weekend running the Chicago race, they lost. Let me repeat this. They lost $50 million.
Which is insanely dumb. So that should be note to self, don't do another street race again.
Yeah, or find a city that's more willing to work with you than Chicago is, which basically put all of the onus on NASCAR. No, doesn't work. So
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going to go either.
I got a feeling it's going to shift and still be the opening race for NBC if they go back.
And you might be right. Again, we'll find out probably a little bit later on this year. Again, little trickles coming out here and there. Generally, we see the schedule from NASCAR late August, early September.
Typically, but there are suspicions floating that it may come out within the next few weeks.
Yeah, because you got it on fairly good authority that now that we've gotten North Wilkesboro back, another historical track is set to make its re-debut onto NASCAR's Cup Series.
I just happened to just accidentally fall into this, if you want to call it that. Last night during the middle of an iRace, I was in a field with Carson Hocevar and Frankie Muniz was in the race. Well, I went back, and Carson, he's a gaming streamer. He'll stream his races. Mm-hmm. And somebody had asked him in this chat, what have you heard about the 2025 schedule? Is it good? And he answered real fast, yeah, I've been told Rockingham's coming back.
Interesting.
Is
now,
it?
Again, this is from Carson Hocevar. This isn't from NASCAR. We'll lay that particular little caveat out there right now and say, for a moment, we're going to take this with a grain of salt. But I would say Carson Hocevar, Rookie of the Year candidate.
Probably has a good inkling.
Probably got his ear to the ground pretty good on that.
Probably so, but the question is going to be, who's it going to be? Is it one series, two series, all three, all four?
Could be. ARCA, Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup?
I mean, I would not be the least little bit surprised if that turns into your Clash next year.
Could be the Clash. Be very early, so you'd be dodging weather a little bit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it wouldn't bother me at all to see that at all. And you and I, like we've mentioned this before, we had the chance several years ago back as it was still kind of going through the process of changing hands and nobody really knew exactly who was going to be grabbing control of it. Although it happened, I think, not too long after we were there, in that track was in remarkably good shape. The whole facility was in remarkably good shape for a place that had been kind of like North Wilkesboro, all but abandoned for, 15, 20 years at least?
Yep, at least.
You know, the track surface was in pretty good shape. Yeah, you had some cracks through it where some grass, weeds were growing up through it, but that's fairly easy to take care of. Heck, they did it at North Wilkesboro. And they still kept the old track surface. Here, the new owners have been working a lot on the facility.
It's already been repaved.
They've already dealt with all of the situations when it comes to all of the media center, the booth, the suites, everything like that. This track is, for all intents and purposes, ready to race. And I love the fact that NASCAR is thinking about going back, and I hope that Hocevar is correct.
I would rather see them go there than go to Mexico.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's still on the table, too. I guess we'll have to wait and see. All right. So, in relation to next year, and we hinted to it, the TNT Sports portion of that schedule that kicks off at Atlanta will also kick off a 5-race series that NASCAR's calling their in-season tournament. Hey, Molly, where have you heard that before? In-season tournament. Sounds a lot like, I don't know, the National Basketball Association, doesn't it? Geez, I hope this thing is not... I hope this thing is not as meaningless, truth be told, as the in-season tournament of the NBA. I get why the NBA did it, okay? They're trying to drum up interest in their sport that really doesn't kick in as far as national interest until Christmas Day.
True.
I get it.
True.
Okay? So they created a gimmick that the Lakers went way overboard with. Folks, it's an in-season tournament. Do you really need to hang a championship banner? No. Don't do it. Just don't do it. NASCAR understands that they've got very little competition in the middle of summer. You got Major League Baseball, NBA's done, NHL's done, National Football League and college football yet to begin. Really, all you're up against is Major League Baseball and the WNBA. But they decided they're going to try and drum up a little interest to try and get people into the new television package in TNT. And this is what they've come up with. This right here. 32 cars, 1-on-1, seated 1 to 32. So just using Matt and myself, as I tend to do, instead of trying to throw out names and ticking off somebody. Since Matt's the resident driver, I put Matt as the 1 seed. I'll put myself as the 32 seed. Race number 1 is at, just because we mentioned it, we'll say Rockingham. He and I technically aren't racing each other any differently because of the fact this is a points race, right? So we're going to race it the exact same way. Now, why did I choose Rockingham instead of Atlanta? Because for the 3 races prior to Atlanta where this thing actually sets up is where our seeding actually comes into effect. They're going to take an aggregate of the finishes from the 3 races prior to Atlanta, and if there happens to be a tie, then it's the highest next finishes, okay, so on and so on. It's really convoluted. We'll get much more in depth into this on our Sunday or Saturday show this weekend, okay? But there's a 3-way tiebreaker just to make sure. The third tiebreaker is where you sit in the points in that season. But you go race 1. Matt's up here as the 1 seed. I'm down here as the 32 seed. It's just a race at Atlanta. And if I, for whatever reason, happen to luck out and best him, despite the fact he's the 1 seed on the season and I'm the 32, I move on to race 2. Matt's eliminated. Presuming, in this case, that I was able to make it all the way and become the winner, I get a $1 million bonus, which is nice. It's very nice. We like that because, let's face it, it's all about, it takes money to race. I mean, let's face it, he knows better than anybody. You're not a fan of this at all. And I will be the first person to say this. Just like in the NBA, this is a gimmick. And it is.
We've got problems with cars. Short track packages and super speedway specifically. We've got issues with Goodyear bringing decent enough tires to put on cars that will actually hold up. We've got other things that we need to be focused on within the sport. But we're coming up with a convoluted gimmick. What in the blue heck are we doing? The main problem I have with this is you're trying to create content and excitement through the season. Heck, if you want to do that, revive the old Winston Million. Revive it.
Sure, that's actually not a bad idea.
That's $1 million to win.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you revive that? But no, we got to go with 32 drivers. And how many start a race? 36 to 40. Let's just say on a regular week when there's not a super speedway or one of the upper end short track races, you at best see 37 on an entry list, at best.
True.
Typically, it's 36, and it's all your 36 car charters. So you're going to have 4 drivers that are just riding around at the back going, I'll just let them tear it up. Because I'm telling you, when they get down to that race number 5,
$1 million on the line.
Somebody is taking home an aluminum can.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to take home an aluminum can.
That'll be checkers or wreckers right there. That's $1 million bonus. You better believe they're going to be going for it as hard as they can.
And dare I say, if the race 5 ends up being at Daytona,
ooh,
I could see it happening.
Don't do that, NASCAR.
I could see it happening. You
NASCAR,
open with a
don't do
super
it.
speedway and you close with a super speedway.
Don't do it, NASCAR.
But back to the moral of the story. And I'm going to say this in closing after I just bashed a 400-yard drive down the middle of the par 5 at Greystone here. That's an analogy.
Yeah, Regions tournament was just this past weekend.
We've gone too far in letting television dictate how the sport runs and how the sport is operated on a day-to-day basis. It is killing this. It is killing this. And Bill France Sr. and Bill France Jr. are probably doing double tuck somersaults and flipping over in their respective places of rest right now because they're going, what are we doing?
And you might be right.
This is ridiculous. Fix the problems.
In the long run, I'll say this, and I'm not as vastly against this as Matt is. I agree with him on the fact that NASCAR's got a lot of other problems. Okay? You want to come up with an idea like this? Okay, come up with an idea like this. It's a nice little bonus package in the middle of the season. Okay, great. Whatever.
They're trying to mimic the Triple Truck Challenge, and they're trying to mimic the Dash for Cash. This is not mimicking it. This is gimmicking it.
Yeah. But, you want to do this, fine, okay? And considering the fact that this, let's face it, looks a heck of a lot like an NCAA bracket, doesn't it, for March Madness?
You're starting at round 2, going to the Final Four.
Okay, that's fine. You're going to have probably a fairly good number of NASCAR fans that are going to download a bracket, and they're going to fill it out and see how they do, just like they do up against the NCAA tournament and all the other stuff. That's fine. Okay, you want to do this, that's great. That's all fine and dandy, but let's not ignore the fact that there are cracks in the pavement that underlies the infrastructure that is NASCAR. He mentioned just a couple of them, okay? Just a couple of them. The fact that, we've got a car that runs real good on a Talladega and a Daytona. It runs real good in an Atlanta or a Kansas, heck, Charlotte. Vegas, Kansas, any of these 1.5 mile tracks. Heck, they even put on a good show at Texas. And the last couple of years, Texas has been a very lackluster race.
Richmond, Watkins Glen, Sonoma, Bristol. Get your pillow and your sleeping bag and your blankie and curl up and take a nap.
Yeah. When it comes to short tracks and unfortunately to a certain extent road courses. Now, COTA was decent.
COTA was fair. I'd say fair.
Yeah, COTA was decent. We'll say that. But you've got work to do on this Gen 7 car when it comes to these short tracks and these road courses. Because when you changed over to the Gen 7 car, something flipped. And what used to be good short track package and good road course packages, that's gone.
Junk.
And all of that stuff that we were talking about, those tracks, specific, not necessarily Daytona and Talladega, because let's face it, restrictor plates / tapered spacers does level the playing field a lot. But when you went to an Atlanta or a Charlotte or a Kansas or a Texas or any of those other 1.5 or 1 mile tracks, it wasn't that good. It was a lackluster program. Everything's flipped. So now we have the exact opposite. Where's the middle ground? A lot of attention's being paid to this. How much attention's being paid to making this car work at all different kinds of facilities? Every time I hear anybody talk about it from NASCAR, it's always, well, we're working on it. How?
Show us. Show me. What are you doing? What are you changing? Why do you hike the cars all the way to Phoenix, Arizona and test when you've got ample short tracks within a stone's throw of where your main hubs are for your shops. But no, we got to go all the way to Phoenix and test it. You know why? Because Phoenix has failed so far flat of its face the last 3 years that, we're going to have all eyes on Phoenix. We got to fix Phoenix first.
Well, yeah, that's where our championship weekend
You've
is.
got 23 other tracks, give or take. You've got, let's just say, umpteen other tracks that need fixing as well. Don't fix the track, fix the car.
Yeah.
Fix
the track
the car.
isn't the problem. Phoenix is a great facility. We've seen great racing at Phoenix in the past. And really, when you look at what we saw between Ross Chastain and Ryan Blaney last year leading up to that finish, that was some really good racing.
It was.
But it was kind of an outlier.
Huge.
If you really want to be honest, and you want to be brutally honest, it's kind of an outlier.
Yeah.
So NASCAR's got problems that they need to fix. And we could go down a litany of things that NASCAR needs to fix. Again, you want to do this? Great. Let's stop paying so much attention to this, and let's go figure out what the problems are, and let's go solve them. That's what NASCAR really needs to do. That is unfortunately what we are not seeing NASCAR do.
Nope.
You want to know how we both know? We're employees.
There you go.
So this weekend, we'll dive a little bit more in depth on this whole television thing. Who knows? Maybe some more stuff will trickle out when it comes to the 2025 schedule, when it comes to the Cup Series. And, of course, we will update you on everything that's going on in Indianapolis because, again, practice started yesterday. This is Wednesday as we drop this podcast. Practice started yesterday. Got cut short by Mother Nature. Got delayed by Mother Nature again this morning, but they're on track, and they're doing 226, 227, 228?
Try 229.
229, starting to amp it up a little bit more. Yep. And don't forget, qualifying for the Indy 500 happens this weekend, 2 days of it. You're going to have your first day of qualifying on Saturday, and on Sunday, they're going to figure it out, Fast 12/Fast 6. We're going to find out who's sitting on the pole for the Indy 500 this coming year. And we're at what, number 106 on the Indy 500, I think? 106, 107?
108, I think.
108, maybe? Okay.
108, yep.
Yeah. I mean, good stuff here. Plus, you've got the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, Sunday evening, prime time. Still want to know why they put it on Fox Sports 1. This seems like a perfect opportunity to put it on the main network, especially prime time on a Sunday night.
I'm sure Fox has got to air Soccer or The Masked Singer.
Oh, I'm sure it's The Masked Singer since prime time.
Pretty sure.
Nobody cares. It's somebody singing in a mask. Whatever. But that's, anyway. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. Join us, CRN Live on YouTube from wherever you are. Join us then, won't you? And until then, we will join you next week once again as we bring you yet another edition. Hey, we're up to a dozen next week on Crossed Flags.
Yep.
Y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy it. We'll see you Saturday, we hope.
See ya.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.